Hey guys, what's up? It's Joe with the Real Momentum podcast. I'm excited for today. It's been in the works for a while, and I'm excited to welcome Katie Day. She's a friend of mine that I've admired from afar for a long time, and I'm getting to know her better. She's coming to my office to speak to all my agents in a month, and we're super excited about that. So Katie, welcome.
Hey man, thank you so much for having me. I hope that after this podcast, you still want me to come out to your office.
We could still be
next
friends.
month. Yeah. So I was like, man, I hope I still have that invitation after this live cast.
It'll probably double the number of people who come after I talk you up after this. But. Well, tell me about yourself. I know you're from Texas. I know you've been in real estate for a while, but were you born and raised in Texas? How did you end up in Texas? How did you end up in real estate? Like what is the story of Katie Day?
Yeah. So Reader's Digest version. I grew up in Maryland. So I lived there for the first 18 years of my life. And then when I graduated from high school, I moved to Florida. My parents retired. I went to college in Florida, lived there for about 4-ish years between college and then a little time after college. And then worked in property management. So did that all around Florida, moved to Birmingham, Alabama for 4 months, and then moved out to Houston, Texas in 2011. So it's been 10 years. This year was 10 years here in Texas. And then got into real estate, got my license in 2015, but went full-time in 2017, started a team in 2018, and then came back to real here a couple months ago, earlier in 2021.
So what made the transition from property management to residential? You may do some commercial, but into more of a traditional real estate.
Yeah, for sure. So the thing for me, I think, was more so I felt like I was working really hard. I felt like for the same amount of money, right? And that's, right. Everyone wants to get into real estate for that, right? But for the unlimited income potential. But yeah, that was part of it. And then at the time I had been managing people for a while. I was overseeing about 50 people, and like managing people was tough. And I was just kind of over managing people. So I want to work for myself and have unlimited income earning potential. I sound like such a cliche right now. And then I think the biggest thing was just like the red tape and bureaucracy of like, if I'm in charge of all of this stuff or responsible for all of this stuff, and then sometimes, but you actually are overseeing a department, but I have to report on that, but like right. You're in charge of it, but I'm getting in trouble for it. That was really frustrating to me. So I really just wanted to find something where I, had full autonomy and everything over my career.
Well, and that's a good point. Having extreme liability without extreme ownership is a challenge. Like if it's not your thing, but you're the one that gets in trouble all the time when something goes wrong. We've always stayed away from property management just from a standpoint of like, it's just in Vegas, it's just fraught with fraud. And like, if you talk to the real estate division in Vegas, like 90% of the complaints that hit the real estate division are in property management. And there's great people that do it, but then it's the few bad apples that really spoil the bunch. You're holding a bunch of people's money. You get a ton of complaints from people who have had, a water heater go out or whatever. And so it's like, it seems like a whole lot of liability, a whole lot of work with a consistency, which I think we're going to get into this later, but like consistency is something real estate agents lack in their life. Property management does provide that. Like if you're managing a certain number of doors, you're going to have a consistent flow of income, right?
Yeah.
So there had to have been something attractive to that. So then you made the transition into full-time, residential real estate sales. How did that go? Like, how was your first, were you a top producer right out of the gate? Was it something that you were able to leverage your property management experience? Are you a marketer? Like,
yeah.
How did it go for you?
Similar to most people in their first year, I didn't really do much. So again, got my license like the end of 2015. Did kind of the part-time thing in 2016. I sold 2 houses, which was like, it was great. But I did do a ton of rentals my first year. And that was something that here in Texas, like the apartment locating and home locating thing is pretty big. So I was like, I know the industry, I know how that works. So that was an easy transition for me to help people find, rental homes and apartments.
Right.
And then the next year I was like, okay, I really need to do something different. So in 2017, that was really when I started to sell more homes. I think I did like 7 million my first year. And then from there just kind of continued to pick up some momentum, pick up momentum. Yeah. And, and everything. So, and then eventually my husband joined me and stuff like that. But like,
Right.
no, I mean, now when people are like, oh, if you were to start over again, like knowing what I know now, my career would have been so much different because I would have like actually used my CRM. I would have, like been consistent in my actions. I would have like done things more than once. I would have focused in on a specific area, not just done open houses all over Houston. Like there are so many things now that I would have done differently, but everything happens in the way that it should. So it is.
Well, that's the thing. It's impossible to like, obviously, if I knew what I knew now, I'd be in a complete, like, I think that's the challenge. And to some degree, some of it is you probably got good advice, but until you went through it yourself, like, you're like, well, no, that's cool advice, but I'm just going to go do this. And you like have to experience things yourself. Right. Yeah. So I think tell your husband, what was his background prior to getting into real estate?
Yeah. So he was in sales. He did, industrial fan sales. And so, in Houston, that's a pretty good gig because it's hot here.
Yeah. I mean, I imagine large restaurants and convention centers. I've seen massive fans in like barns and rodeo.
So that's where it started. Yeah. That's where it started.
So then for him to transition from that, so I was, when I first got into real estate, I sold a few houses. I got a job offer to run a construction product. Basically, it was an overhead garage storage system. And I went to install some units at a guy's house who owned a home building company in Vegas. And he said, like, you're a good salesman. And I said, thank you. And he said, why on earth are you selling me $100 garage overhead storage system? Yeah. Like, why not go sell the largest product that most consumers will ever buy, which is a home? He knew I had my real estate license. And again, that was really good advice for me at the time. I think I was newly married and just trying to pay bills. So I'm sure for your husband, there were probably some massive tickets that he sold for those things, but his experience selling that, I'm sure, helped him getting into the real estate industry. So talk about construction of your company. Like, are you over marketing, and are you the passion and he's the organization? Like, how does it work for you guys?
So for those listening and for you, like the disc profile, I'm sure you're familiar with.
Yep.
Yeah. So disc personality wise, I'm a DC, right? Okay. And disc personality wise, he's like an ISD. Like all three of those are kind of his main drivers, but like he's definitely an I, he's definitely an S, and he definitely has D as well. So it's like our personalities, you would think he would be like the marketer and that he would be, all of that. But he's definitely the more like numbers oriented one of the two of us when it comes to business. I'm the one with all the spreadsheets and everything, but he's the one that's like, here's our P&L and here's what we need to do.
Right.
So, for the most part, like marketing and social media and video and everything is like more my realm, and something that I enjoy doing. His is more, as far as with our team, more of the team training and coaching and all that. So we're a good fit. Initially when he got into real estate, he got in full-time in June of 2017. And we were both just kind of doing our own thing. Because like we didn't start our team until September of 2018. So, we were just doing our own thing.
You were both operating as independent real estate agents.
And like not even helping each other out at all. Like sometimes we may show something for each other or whatever, but like it was just more so like I already had my business. He was getting into it. And like I didn't change my name when we got married. So like it was also easier to like, if we weren't whatever, I'd be like, oh, you can work with my colleague Ryan Steer, and like would just like hand them off to Ryan, and like it wouldn't be weird. And then when we realized like later on, once we had like, a team and things, like people like when we're like, oh yeah, we're married. Oh, my husband, my wife, they'd be like, oh,
Yeah.
that's so sweet. And we're like,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
we're all we talk
It's
about is
not
real
as-
estate, but
yeah.
you know, but yeah, I mean, it was definitely something that like in the beginning, it was definitely, we were just like running completely opposite businesses. So when we did come together to start the team and work together, it did take a while to figure out like what our roles were going to be and what our responsibilities were going to be, because we both were just really doing our own thing.
So have you read Rocket Fuel?
It is in my Audible. I have started it, but every time I hear a book, you know, it's like one of those like, oh, Four Disciplines of Execution. I'm like, oh, I've got it. My coach told me to read it. So I'm reading that one now. So
it's a good one. It talks about visionary and integrator, and how like most great companies have a visionary and then they have an integrator. They have a passion and then they have an organization. And, you know, you look at Walt and Roy Disney, or Steve Jobs and Woz. And so it's like, there's always this visionary setting a vision, and then an integrator making sure the vision happens without burning the whole building down. Yeah. So for you guys, are you more the visionary and he's more the integrator?
I would say to some extent, yes. I think we're also in an interesting position because like I'm definitely getting out of production next year. I'm gonna just continue to speak it into existence. But
it's a great life, I'll tell you. Being out of production is awesome.
Thanks. Rub it in a little more. Why don't you?
Production is not as fun as it seems. Production numbers are great, but opening doors isn't my favorite part.
Yeah, and so so I could dig into that. We could dig way deeper into that. But anyway, so I'm looking to get out of production by the end of next year. He's going to be shortly behind that. So like his kind of role, and as we continue to grow our organization, is like, okay, we will hire in like the integrator, right? So hire in an operations manager, have, you know, kind of the operations team and sales manager team, and, you know, kind of all of that type stuff. And then he's probably going to get more into development, and, you know, like not him actually building, but building houses and, you know, looking into multifamily and stuff like that. Yeah. Well, I'm not sure what I'm going to do yet, but, you know, the traveling and speaking and hanging out with my friends in fun cities is always fun to me.
Ideal.
So, we'll figure it out, but that's, you know,
Yeah, I would say my life is a series of midlife crises. Like I'm 42, so I should be having one right now. But it's almost like I have them all the time. And so it is interesting because the longevity of a real estate agent, there has to be a progression, right? Like it cannot be show homes forever. I think showing homes initially is how we cut our teeth. Then it's natural that people move into more of a listing agent role where they show homes to more of their friends, family, and sphere of influence. Yeah. Then they move into leadership. And so it is cool to see people like yourself who, being an old dog in this, I've been in it for 20 years. I look and I go, oh my word. I know what Katie Day is going to be in 12 months or 24 months, because I've just seen that progression in myself and in amazing people like you. But it is weird because there's always that draw to production. There's always that draw to, I think there's a matter of pride with saying like, hey, I'm doing what you guys are doing, like follow me type thing. Yeah. I found, and maybe this is something that you could speak on, or maybe something you're going through, like Taylor and I hit a moment maybe 4 or 5 years ago. He's my business partner, where we literally, I said to him, like, I can't continue to do business the same way. Like I'm just hitting channel. I didn't know what channel capacity was, but I was just burning out. Yeah. And I said, I just can't do this. What would happen? So I actually gave a talk in church one time, and half of the people there hated my talk, right? Because church is all about beating yourself up and I'm so terrible and I'm the worst, right? So I gave a talk and I said, it was New Year's, like right after the New Year. And I said, this year, and I think the year was maybe 2018, I'm going to ignore all of my weaknesses and only focus on the things I'm good at, which is the complete opposite of most people that go to church. New
Year resolution.
My New Year's resolution is I'm just going to go all in on what I'm good at. And so let me ask you this, Katie, like what if you ignored everything that you're trying to be great at and just focused on what you are already fantastic at, what does your world look like?
God, so I'm like, I hate talking about myself, and all that type
Most
of
awesome
things.
people do. Like the people who generally talk the least about themselves are the people who you really want to follow. The people who are like sitting on Maseratis with Gucci suits on are
Yeah.
probably the people you don't want to follow with.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. No, so I mean, I think for me, and it's funny because I was actually on a podcast earlier this week, and like we were talking about we were talking about social media and content and video and marketing and stuff like that. And he was like, "Man, like your YouTube is just so great and this that and the other." And I was like, "Man, I appreciate you saying that because my coach has been beating me up about my YouTube and like that I need to put out more content and consistent content and all of that." So yeah, I mean, I think that if I were to focus in on strengths and things that I feel as if I'm already, okay at, like it would definitely be the content and marketing and, business development side of things, as opposed to, you know, I don't know, everything else. But I do make a good spreadsheet and like, stuff like that.
So I mean, video is something that you're actually really, really strong at. I'm a big Gary Vaynerchuk, like I can't listen to him when my kids are around, but
Yeah, no.
I do very much believe in the documentation over creation.
Yeah.
So like, what's your philosophy on video creation? Like, how are you able to, because getting to know you,
Yeah.
I feel like what you do on YouTube helps. Like there is not two Katie days, at least not that I'm aware of yet. I need to talk to your husband and figure that out. But
Yeah, let's not open up that can of worms, but
I
no.
feel like you're very good at documenting who you actually are. So what is your strategy with video content that allows you to execute at a high level, create awareness and brand recognition while not being fake?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing for me as far as content creation goes, and I, the Gary V, and like I've coached with Tom Ferry for a little while, but followed him for a very long time because he just puts out a ton of content as well, right? Is always like the digital mirror, right, type thing. So that was something that like in getting into real estate, I was like, okay, people want houses, they want to know what's in those neighborhoods or what's about, like what those neighborhoods are about or what you could expect. So I was like, okay, I want to highlight community. So that was kind of my first
Right.
like pillar of content. At first,
So you're
that
talking
was
like restaurants and shopping
restaurants,
centers and things like
bars,
that.
yeah, restaurants, bars, shopping, even businesses. Like, so we've highlighted like some like charities, and like one of our former team members also is a counselor. She actually left real estate to go into counseling. Not sure if that's but because of working with us, she needed to go full time into that. But that's a whole nother story.
We probably all need her help, actually.
Like sometimes we would have conversations and I'm like, let's not go deeper here. Like, let's just process the paperwork and let's move on. But but we would focus in on lots of different community-based things, right? So it wasn't just like the bars and restaurants. It would be, new shopping centers, new mixed use developments, charities, stuff like that. But community, it was important to me. And where I was going with that was that like when we first started doing it, it was more of a document, right? It was me being like, oh, I'm out to dinner, so let me, take pictures and video this and post it. And then as we continue to realize that this is something we need to do, like move up to higher production quality, hire videographer, do all that. But community was one. The other content pillar that I think is important to me is like the knowledge broker, right? So like whether that's market updates, whether that's sharing information about what's happening in my local area, what's happening in the news and how that impacts you if you're looking to buy or sell, like making sure that I'm giving you enough information to where if you're looking at my page, whether that's Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, wherever, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, this person knows what they're talking about, right? And I would feel comfortable, spending $300 to $1 million or how many ever, dollars with this person, right? So community, and then, knowledge broker type stuff. And then from there, I think the proof of success is always really important. And one thing that I harp on a lot now is like when you go on a page and it's all just listed, just sold, like I'm so over that. And I tell people this all the time, but like you should tell the story, right? Like almost every seller we work with prepares their home before they sell, or they have some journey that they go on before they get there. Like that's the story to tell, right? Not we had 15 offers and I'm a badass. Like it's this is what the seller did. This is the journey that they went on. And this is how we got here to get those 15 offers. And, I'm a badass, but like it's too many people. That's all that they post. Right. Same thing with buyers, like in most markets in North America, like we're in a seller's market, right? Like our agents and our team are putting in work to get buyers into homes, and like the buyers are putting in work to get into homes. Like those are the stories to tell. Like, and then from there, just like fun stuff. So, you know, I like lifting weights. I like eating food. I like playing with my dog, and, you know, on occasion, like enjoying some nice wine. So like, those are things that I like highlighting because like, that's what I enjoy doing. So, you know, if drinking wine and, you know, playing with my dog and whatever are things that people will comment on, and they comment on that more than they comment on my market updates when I like put together a 15-minute like fire update with like all of, you know, what this means for you. And if you're looking at this price point and in this neighborhood, this is an opportunity. No one cares. Like,
and
they just want to know, you know, it.
That's the most frustrating part, right? Like, I've tried to explain this to people before. It's what I think is cool and what I think is relevant and what I want to talk about has no relevancy on my success. Like, I'm literally at the mercy of the people who receive my content, and they're the ones who decide if that's the crazy meritocracy we live in. Is we all know generational agents who've been in the business for 25 or 30 years, and literally they used to survive on calendars and recipe books and things like that. And like, then we meet them now and they struggle so much. And I think we have the advantage of being that, well, you're probably a lot younger than me, but for me, I'm like a generational bridge guy. Like I understand technology enough. And I also was in real estate in the days of traditional, like printout calendars and advertising Homes and Land magazine. But so I'm able to bridge that gap. But for some people, bridging that gap is a really, really tough thing. And knowing that the content they want to deliver may not be what people want to consume becomes a very frustrating thing.
Well, and so two things on that. And that's where like, I love direct mail. We do send out calendars. Like I love the old school, but then I also love the like new school, you know, we're going to hit you on the digital side. Like I'm going to highlight every new business when it hits Houston, not all of Houston. It's massive, but you know, like do all of that type thing. Is the one, right? So like, I love that what you're saying about like you feeling as if you're kind of that bridge between, you know, two camps, right? Like that's totally where you need to be, because so many people have completely written off the old school, right? Of the direct mail and it's all digital. And it's like, no, like every time we send out a mailer, we get a call, like every single time. Like, so the ROI on that, like anyways, but
and it's probably Gary would say it's an undervalued asset right now, right? Like it's an undervalued channel because everybody's skewed away from print mail.
And I know agents that are killing it with radio shows. Like I can think of 3 off the top of my head that like have weekly radio shows, 4 that have weekly radio shows that like kill it. And they're like on AM or I don't know I don't know what they're on, but I see the video on Instagram, but I know that they get a lot of business and calls and questions. But I think the other thing that people do too much of is they, especially in social media, are creating content that they think that they like or that they think that other realtors would like, and they're not making it for the consumer and for their target audience and avatar. And that's like the biggest issue.
And that should be a massive warning sign, right? Like if you post something and everybody hitting you up are other realtors, that's not a great thing. Right? I mean, if you put something out there for your consumers and all of a sudden you're getting blown up from other agents, like, oh my gosh, how did you do this? This is so amazing. And that happens over and over and over again. And you're looking back and going like, I don't think any consumers have hit me up. It just shows that content is attractive to agents. And so if you're trying to be attractive to agents, that's one thing. But I think that's a great point.
It's also funny though, like as a caveat to that, like, so I had this moment, we had this conversation about this, and I was like, okay, so all of my content, with the exception of some, is going to be consumer facing. Like I am only going to answer questions. Like if you want me to answer questions about like real estate, like I'll do that on a separate YouTube page. I'll do that, you know, in DMs and whatever, right? Like my page will be, you know, buying and selling and investing in real estate, you know, whatever. I get more comments on TikTok and Instagram on my short form videos from realtors and people DMing me with questions on like how they can do that or what questions or whatever, right? Like process videos, commenting on like staging tips and whatever than I ever did on like books that I think you should read or tips that I think you should do as you get into real estate. Like agents don't care. They're watching it, but they don't want to look vulnerable and say like, oh, like I should read more books because I don't actually read or I don't actually try to educate myself about real estate. Like they're like commenting more, which like then obviously like the algorithms and everything get to work, and like
Sure.
that pushes more views and content, on that consumer facing stuff.
Like-minded individuals. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of
so
funny.
Then what's your biggest weakness? Like, what is the thing that so I believe in hiring weaknesses, not necessarily improving upon them.
Yeah.
Like if I'm not good at, if I'm 42 years old and not good at something in my industry, I probably need to hire it, because the chances of me becoming good at it are really, really slim. So where's your next hire? What do you need? What's your biggest weakness?
I'm looking over at my little Remarkable tablet, because I've got like, I could just open up my coaching folder and just lay it all on you. No, our next hires, or, I think our next hires are going to be a sales manager and an operations manager.
Okay.
So
those aren't weaknesses of yours, but maybe that's a bridge to get you to out of production and onto other things, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, so I think that like with a lot of the things that we've been talking about, so like with traveling, with speaking, with going to conferences, with going to events, like the thing that generally suffers is, your relationship with and the culture with your team, right? Because if you're not there, right, or if you don't have things in place, that suffers. So like I would say that is a weakness. Like also my CD personality, like don't have much I or S. So I'm just like, pop in, these are the things I need you to do, pop out. And like if someone did that to me, I'm completely cool with it. Like I don't need the like, hey Joe, how's your day going? Oh, wonderful. Like just wanted you to work on these listing agreements today. I'm just like, hey Joe, get these listing agreements done. I need them by 4 p.m. And that's kind of how I operate. So like I think that in having someone kind of manage that, hey Joe, how are you? I can then focus more on culture and bigger picture culture and, that. So I mean, I definitely think that is, if I had to say I had a weakness, that could maybe be one of them, I guess.
Well, it's like that Michael Scott, when he went to interview for a position at corporate, he said, what are your biggest weaknesses? And he's like, I work too hard. I care too much. And and it was like, those are also my strengths. But, so, all right, let me be selfish for a second, because you and I, we're getting to know each other because we both have made transitions into an ecosystem that is trying to change the way we do real estate.
Yeah.
And we're not connected. So we're not, we don't make money from each other, but we want, to collaborate together.
Yeah.
You don't pay me for coaching. I don't pay you for coaching, but I think we value each other. So talk a little bit about your, how did you end up at Real? I know there was a time where you stepped away and came back, because it's how I know you. I'm curious to hear that story.
Yeah. So, okay, I'll just really quickly. So got my license in 2015 and saw an ad, back then of high commission splits, lower, I think low or no fees. I don't think there was a join fee. I think you just signed up with the real estate commission and you were in, right? Because this was infancy, 2015, not much was happening, right?
Yep.
So joined, again, was super part-time. 2016, I did a contract gig for about 6 months of the year, so I was kind of doing that for the second half of the year. So I wasn't really into real estate, and everything was cool. It was good, all was well. But basically one of my friends that I knew here in Houston was promoted to be the branch manager of a Coldwell Banker office.
Okay. Yeah.
And so he called me and was like, hey, I just got this big promotion. I'm now a manager of a Coldwell Banker office. It's like, cool, man. Congratulations. Good for you. Didn't really think anything of it. And he's like, I want you to come in so I can show you the office. And I'm like, dude, I know what you're trying to do. I know what an office looks like. It's got 4 walls and maybe some desks and cubicles and some computers. I'm good. Typewriters, I'm good. Yeah. And so he eventually got me to agree to come in. He wore me down, he coached me to the yes. So I was like, yeah, man, I'll come by and I'll see you. So I was wearing this, t-shirt, jeans, boots, my casual wear if I'm not whatever. Yeah. And he brings me in, he's walking me around. He's showing me, this is where we sit. This is where we have meetings. And I'm like, cool, dude. That's awesome, man. Good for you. And then he opens the store. He's like, I want you to meet my buddy Chet, who was the manager that was leaving that office to go to a different one. He's like, oh, hey, I got to take this call. I'll be right back. And he just bounces and leaves me in this office with this guy. And I'm like, oh geez. I was trying to think of something that wasn't a cuss word. Geez, golly gee, I'm in an interview right now. Yeah. I just got bamboozled into an interview. So talked to him. I ended up staying there for 2 hours talking to this guy who I still talk to this day, like good guy, good friend, and end up like signing with Coldwell Banker because, you know, they sold me on all the things that they had. And being a fairly new agent, again, I had sold 2 homes that year.
Yeah.
Like I was like, cool. Like these are people that, you know, I can learn from. These people have been in the business for 20 plus years. Like, you know, there's a lot of opportunity here. So like, sure, I'll sign up, you know, like sounds great. So I signed up with Coldwell Banker. And, you know, I mean, that was definitely a moment in my career. You know, how you have those moments where you're like, oh, my career took a turn because of this. So, you know, did that. But the entire time between 2016 was basically when I left, right? And I started with CB in January of 2017. Like that entire time up until like basically this past summer, like Tamir would send me these messages and be like, hey, we just started, you know, a new, you know,
went public
whatever.
Or,
Well, at that point I was definitely fully aware of what was happening at Real, but like it would be like, oh, we're offering, you know, agent incentive to bring on other agents. We're offering this. And obviously the models changed a lot over the past,
changed a lot
14 to now. But like every time something would change, oh, we just signed this new tech thing that we're doing. Like, you know, just like those little things that you check in with people.
Right.
And like, I thought that I had responded to all of those messages. He, in San Antonio a few months ago, decided to let everyone know that I didn't respond to all of those messages.
Awesome.
So I looked like a jerk, but, you know, it is what it is. But, you know, like, so we kept in touch, though, right? Like, would message each other, like, you know, birthday, you know, as you do on Facebook, like, happy birthday, man, like, whatever.
Yeah.
And then this past year, back in January, basically, we weren't looking to move anywhere. We were very happy with where we were. We were, you know, building our team.
Still at Coldwell
at CB, planning on staying, bled blue, you know, all the things. And we had an opportunity to go to another brokerage, and like we were exploring that opportunity, but it just didn't feel right. Like I was just, there's something about this that doesn't feel right. So like instead of going here, or instead of like whatever, like instead of being like, okay, we're just going to stay where we are, we're like, well, maybe it's because like we're not talking to the right people or whatever. So like, let's like go to all of the other brokerages. So like, if you think of every big name brokerage in your town, like we went to, you know, we went to Compass, we went to Remax, we went to Better Homes and Gardens, we talked to EXP, like we're having these conversations with like everyone. And I'm like, I just, you know, all of these feel like very lateral moves. Like we'd have more of the same. Like, sure, the numbers may be higher or lower by a penny, but then we're paying more in this or that. It just didn't feel right. And like, I'm also like, we're happy where we are. Why are we having this conversation?
Yeah.
And then there's just a moment in time. And I remember I was standing in my husband's office and I was like, if we're considering actually making this move, I was like, I need to call Tim and like, talk to him about Real, because like Real hasn't been in this conversation at all. We're talking to like you know, EXP, we're talking to other old school brokerages. Like, why wouldn't we talk to him just to make sure, even if, and knowing he and I have known each other for a while, even if he says, hey, you know, if you go somewhere else, like these are the things you need to think about. So I like called him, and then that of course opened up a can of worms. And, you know, then after many talks with him and, you know, our buddy Brad and Tamir and, you know, everyone, you know, we made the decision to come to join Real. So
that's awesome. I knew there was a story there because I saw when you came back, it was a great day for Tamir. So I was like, there must be something to this. So talk about this. Like, I've become borderline obsessed with collaboration.
Yeah.
I think I was an indie brokerage guy. I was a Remax guy. I had a stint at Coldwell Banker, but for the last 10 years, it's been building, exiting. Like, we built a brokerage, sold it, created another one. We got to buy. So our whole thing started, we got a buyout offer from a traditional brick and mortar brokerage that was coming to Vegas, and they wanted to purchase us. So we took it to our mentor at the time, or he's still our mentor, but we took it to him and he said, well, if you're open, why don't you guys look at Real? We had never heard of it. It didn't exist in Nevada. And we're very, I guess part of it is like, prior to Real, we would collaborate, you know, like Brad McCollum and I were part of the same little tech community with Curator. I don't know if you know Jimmy Smith, Jimmy Mackin and Chris Smith.
Jimmy Smith, just make it a fun name.
Yeah, just to make it easy. So anyways, then we got introduced to the Real concept, and it became like, so let me get this straight. We could just all collaborate with each other. And like, I can call Katie and say, hey, you're coming to Vegas, come speak at my office. And she's stoked. And if I go out to Houston, she may ask me to come speak at her office. And like, our agents can collaborate and send referrals back and forth with each other. And we can mastermind together. I think what I loved was I always felt as an indie broker, like this tug of war between myself and my agents, where like the more we would try to increase our profitability, and you saw brokers do this at offices you were at, try to increase their profitability, it hurts you, the agent. So that gets you looking around. So then the two issues we ran into as an indie broker was we could either be profitable and have a high turnover rate, or we can make no money and no one will ever leave us. And then all of a sudden,
welcome to the issue with brokerage today,
exactly,
right? Like,
exactly.
Not a profitable game.
So then we come over to Real, we give up our ownership stake in our brokerage. We share, we become a shareholder with all of our agents. And it's like, dude, the more money I can help my agents put in their pocket actually helps me succeed as well, which is it's opposite. With a brokerage, it's like the more money Katie makes, I have to figure out how to get a piece of that, or else, and by doing that, she's going to be liable to be recruited by another broker. And it was like this rat race that I was so excited to get out of. So talk about, like, you came, what are you experiencing now at Real that, I mean, are you feeling the same thing? Is it, I'm more excited about my career than I ever have been,
dude.
And that's like abandoning a brokerage.
I hear you. And like, it's something that you built, right? Like,
exactly.
So we came to Real, like, obviously, being where we were, like, I mean, the general setup, right? So we came here for the financial reasons, right? Like, when we made the decision that we were going to make a change, when we made the decision that it was going to be Real, we then sat down with the team and we're like, hey, before we like make this decision, like, we want to like run this by you and tell you what we're doing. And like, we want you all to be in, like, so, like, basically I ran all the numbers, I had my spreadsheets and everything, but like for them on the short term, for each transaction, they were going to make more money, right? Even at maybe not, but all in all, they would make more money
over the course of a year. Yeah.
All in all, they would make more money. So short term, more money per transaction. If they chose to opt into stock purchase program, like, how many of your agents prior to doing this were putting 5% of their commissions into the market in any way, shape, or form? Like,
zero. I wasn't doing it, like zero.
But right? Yeah. Like, and so like, that was my thing, right? And then obviously you have the match and all that. So like, it's like the 401k type thing, right? So you get a match and they give you some money and you get some extra dollars there. Even if, which, I joined at like under $2 a share, now we're closer to $4. Like, even if nothing happens with the stock, like, you can sell it in a few years and like, it's still money. Like, it's going to be $1 more, $2 more, $50, whatever. Like, it's still more money,
right?
Whatever. And you weren't going to miss that 5% anyways. Let's be real.
Yeah. Cause you were going to buy, like clothes and vacations and stuff like that.
So, you had the more money per transaction, you had the stock if they chose to, and we were already attracting agents to our brokerage and our office, right? Like, I was going to the real estate school to speak on behalf of my brokerage with my office manager. Yeah, because it was like, we wanted to build a culture. We were doing, what are those things called? Happy hours. We were doing like different things. So it was like, we were collaborating, right? Like, and I'm like, okay, so if we continue to do what we've already been doing, but like, you could possibly make $4,000 or more on this per year. Like, that would be again, for my agents, pretty big.
Right.
So the entire reason for me coming over was completely financial. Like, it was like, cool. Like, we talked about collaboration. Like, we've named off a lot of people today that like, I'm very good friends with, and I'm friends with a lot of people here that I was like, man, Jeremy signed up, man, Malcolm just signed up, man, Chi just came over, oh, Bob's over, man. Like, and I know all of these people and I've known them, I've watched them, some of them I knew personally, some of them I just knew from social, but it's one of those like, geez, like, I'd love to work with it, but like, I still would hang out with them if I was or wasn't here, Yeah. So it like, I did have that, like, I want to be a part of it, but it wasn't really like a deciding factor for me. Like, the money was like, God, like, this makes sense financially. Right. And then like, now being here and like what you just said, like the excitement and like the energy and like enthusiasm you have for your career, like it's indescribable. And that's what's so difficult for me when like I have conversations with people that want to come over and they're like, but I just don't think that like, the tech-based, cloud-based things, like, I don't think that's going to be like something that's, and I'm like, you just need to come to something. You need to come to one of our masterminds. You need to come to even via Zoom, but like, come to a mastermind via Zoom, come to something in person, like, like in leaving. So I was in Vegas for, which I wish we would have connected. But I was in Vegas.
I think we saw each other across the room, but it was crazy.
Like, it was just kind of like, oh, hey, whatever. But like, I wish we would have had time to like, dig in more or like whatever. But like, in meeting with like Spring and, Sheila and
Right.
Tamir and everyone in Vegas, right? In going to San Antonio when they were doing like, the little roadshow thing earlier this year, like the amount of energy and excitement that everyone has, regardless of who you came here under, who you're with, who, whatever, is just so unreal. And there's like honestly no word to describe it. And I don't know if you have one. So if you do, let me know. But like now it's like, I'm here for the culture. I'm here for the people. I'm here for the collaboration, because it's like, I think what we're building is really cool. I think that it's so different from what you normally hear from your C-level executives and from your leadership. And like, the entire like work hard, be kind, make a difference, all that, like they actually mean that. And that's like, it's crazy. Like I love it.
It's refreshing. Well, and I'll tell you, so, I mean, we're beyond podcast now and you and I are just chatting, but, we were in Charlotte. I got back last night and in the room, there was, I hate to even talk about it, but like generationally, there wasn't a lot of connection in the room as far as people that had brought other people over.
Yeah.
So, and everyone spoke from their own perspective, right? Like I'm a big believer that your life has given you a certain shade of glasses. My life has given me a certain shade of glasses that when we look at the same white wall, we're going to argue all day if we want to. You're going to think it's yellow and I'm going to think it's red because that's our life, right? So to a person around the room, we all saw things so differently.
Yeah.
But there were these core beliefs that we had in common. Like, how do we help agents that are not, how do we prevent the generational agent that does this for 20 years from being broken 20 years? Like, how do we help we've got the single mom or the dad, young dad trying to provide for a family or whatever it is. How do we help them actually be productive? And how do we help them get used to compensation that isn't just once every 3 months? Like, how do we help them build something where they can, like to your point, the only arguments we have with our agents now that came over with us are they may be upset with us because we didn't push the stock program harder on them. Because we told them, we're like, guys, we're not going to sell you on this, but you need to get in on this, right? We came over to $1.86, probably, I think we came over within 30 days of each other. And like now the stock, I don't know, is trading at 370 or something.
Yeah.
Like it was just a complete no-brainer. Forget about the match. Forget about anything else. Just taking some money out of your paycheck and saying, hey, company, buy stock for me and just put it in an account where I don't really mess with it. And then like we've had agents not look at it and then go in there and there's $22,000. And you're like, whoa, what happened? Like I only
is
put
there
in
a typo
10.
here?
Yeah, why I only put in 10,000. Why is it 22? Because they just haven't been watching the stock.
Yeah.
So anyways, I think overall, when I look at it, it is the collaboration. It is the teaching responsibility. It is the teaching production. It is the mentorship. It is the networking. And it's like, it's just so highly, I think to your point, I have conversations every day with people. I came back from Charlotte and there's a few individuals that are coming over that aren't here yet.
Yeah.
That I'm like, please do me a favor and just expand your mind beyond what you think is possible, because what we're building is so amazing that it will be bigger than you think. Like you will have more conversations and collaboration than you think. Yeah. There are better people here than you probably think. You've been in a brokerage before where you're like, oh, that guy's really cool and he's doing his own thing, and that guy's really cool and doing his own thing. But the collaborative, I mean, Tim and Jared and Eric Hatch and Bob and Heather Cook and Spring and myself and Taylor and Christy Majors, and we're all sitting around going like, we are all good at different things and we're all here for it.
Yeah.
And like I was picking people's brains on things, they were picking my brain on things. So anyways, I could talk about it all day, but Katie, tell me kind of your outlook on 2022. What does 2022 look like for Katie Day? What does it look like for the real estate industry? I've got a fun little exercise we can run at the end, which is Real Brokers currently at 4,000 people. Where do you think we'll be at the end of next year? But like, what does 2022 look like for you?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's going to be a crazy year. I'm like trying to take time off between now and the end of the year that I don't know is going to happen, but it is what it is. But, yeah, I mean, so for us, we're looking to kind of double our production, year over year. I think, for the real estate industry as a whole, it's going to be an interesting year. I mean, I think the past 2 years we've been super, super fortunate to have been in probably the greatest real estate economy we're ever going to see, like in our lifetime, right? Like I truly don't think that this is, something we'll see again, as far as just the amount of price appreciation and low supply and super low interest rates. And it just like the perfect real estate, time. Right. So, feel very fortunate to have, been able to sell a, home or two during that time. And yeah, so I mean, I think that next year is going to be tough. I think interest rates are going to continue to increase, but I don't know about Nevada and where you're at and everything, but like for us, inventory is so low that even with interest rates coming up, it's going to bring us to a balanced market, not even to a buyer's market. Like we are in such a seller's market. We're 55 to 60% less inventory than 2019 for all of this year. Yep. So even if we get that 40% back, that's just bringing us back to a normal market, not even a buyer's market, not even close to like basically just almost a balanced market, right?
Yeah.
So for Houston and for Texas, especially just with all of the California and other states, we have a lot of investors, as I know y'all do as well in Vegas. Yeah. Like the buyer pool here is very strong. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be a wild ride in 2022. We're gearing up and trying to, continue to scale our systems, but we're going to put a lot of pressure on our systems and on our team and on ourselves. Yeah. But, yeah. And then, I'll say it and put it out in the universe, like looking to get out of production.
I'm going to hold you to that. When next year at the December 2022, I want to talk to you about where you're at with production. I've got some ideas for you.
I appreciate that. But yeah, so getting out of production, building more homes, starting to get into building multifamily. We want to we've been speaking with some agents about partnering to build in other states, act more as the developer and financial backing as opposed to being boots on the ground like we are here. And really just see what we can do to leverage some of the things that we've been talking about as having, some extra money, right?
Yep.
Like leverage that to really build wealth and see what we can do to kind of make an impact. The other thing that I feel pretty strongly about is like affordable housing, like doesn't exist. Like you can't buy a home in Houston for under 250, like that doesn't have 55 offers. So like, I think that
institutional cash offers and stuff like that as well.
And that's, institutional buyers are definitely, squeezing the market, as we've seen in Nevada and Arizona, Florida, Texas for the past basically, I don't know what year we're in, 8 years or so.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, I think that there's a lot to do. We'll figure it out. I just know how many homes I want to sell, and I know how many homes I don't want to sell, and we'll go from there. Figure it out.
Well, Katie, thank you so much. I'm excited for you to come to Vegas. I value very much what you do. I think you and I will be collaborating for years to come. I'm so grateful to be in alignment with you. Like, I'm so grateful to have a fan. It's cheesy, but like
the feeling's mutual,
have family in Texas, to be able to say like, when I go to Houston, I want to come see what you guys are doing. And when you come out, we'd love to share what we're doing, because it's such a big world, and with an abundance mindset, there's 2 million realtors in America, and like we can help each other.
Yeah.
And we can, it's as you can tell, I'm just becoming addicted to it. So thanks for hopping on.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much for having me. Looking forward to seeing you here soon.